And Iran's ambassador to the UN has slammed the seizure of Iran's assets by the U.S. as a political decision. Gholamali Khoshrou made the remark in an address to the UN General Assembly on Thursday. He said that Washington's move is a clear example of abusing banking and financial networks for, quote, false and unsubstantiated claims to pressure Iran. Khoshrou said Tehran is committed to using all possible means at its disposal, including referring the case to the International Court of Justice to recover its assets. In April, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled some $2 billion worth of Iran's frozen assets be granted to the families of victims of 1983 bombing at the U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut. Iran denies any involvement in that attack, stressing that the money belongs to the country's central bank. And for more on this story, we're joined out of Bristol by Mr. Tony Gosling, investigative journalist. And Mr. Gosling, Iran is irate that it is having assets seized behind a bombing which the country had no due process to defend itself against the allegation of having involvement in it. Your thoughts?
Well, this is a bit cheeky of the Americans, isn't it? The Americans froze this money, $2 billion. Easy to say, but it's a tremendous amount of money. Under the sanctions regime, and then as the sanctions are being relaxed, rather than hand the money back, now it wants to steal it for itself. It's just reluctant to go along with the agreements that it's made under the sanctions about this money. The Iranian foreign minister has quite rightly called this highway robbery. The bombing that the Americans want the compensation for is the 1983 Beirut barracks bombing, which killed nearly 250 US soldiers and injured another 150 or so civilians. It was an enormous death toll, but there is no evidence the Americans have put forward that this was the responsibility of Iran. It was part of what was the Lebanese civil war, which killed hundreds of thousands of people. So I know it sounds a terrible thing to say, but this was a drop in the ocean in that very long civil war. But it hurt the Americans, and it hurt them bad. And they actually then withdrew almost all their soldiers from Lebanon and stopped interfering in that conflict. And I think that still hurts. So they have deciding to use this as part of a propaganda campaign to demonize Iran, demonize Muslims, which they've been doing ever since the invasion of Afghanistan, the September the 11th attacks. And it's really, I think, just another way of propaganda, getting this into the news. But the thing is that they are judge and jury on their own decision.
And what kind of
Iran is absolutely right to take this to the International Court of Justice.
Right. And what kind of precedent is being set here if the U.S. can arbitrarily hold Iran responsible for this bombing and seize the country's assets?
Well, it's a very bad precedent. It's the same sort of thing that happened, in fact, in Libya. The Libya assets were seized before the invasion of the country, the takeover and the toppling of Gaddafi. And then a lot of that money suddenly started to disappear into American coffers. This is, as the foreign minister has said, highway robbery writ large right on across the world for everyone to see. The Court of Justice, International Court of Justice, is not quite the same as the International Criminal Court, although they're both based in The Hague in the Netherlands. And both of these institutions have got a lot to live up to, particularly with the accusations against Tony Blair this week here in Britain at the Chilcot report, saying that effectively that there was no real excuse for him to go to war. And the International Criminal Court has backed off from any kind of prosecution. So one wonders, where is justice in the world today? And everyone will be looking to The Hague, to the International Court of Justice, to deliver some real justice, not just Americans making decisions about themselves and seizing cash. Thieves, that's effectively what they are right now, and let's hope this can be put to rights.
Thank you for your input, Mr. Tony Gosling, investigative journalist, joining us out of Bristol.